First off, some boring logistics about Roll20. Roll20 is both a free and a paid service, and several things in between. So, I have a pro account because I use it a lot. But there are 3 levels of things. Base is free, and if you're a dungeon master, you probably should be a plus or pro account because you'll want to use things like dynamic lighting and advanced fog of war and all these kind of things. But as a player, it's not particularly necessary to have a paid account. But it is also helpful you can buy some of the D&D books, like the player handbook, through Roll20, which is helpful for new players and new characters, but again, 100% not necessary. I'll show you why it's useful in a moment. But again, you could spend absolutely no money on this as a player. So first of all, here we have our Mead Hall. This is where we invite new players to Midgard Adventures to come and create characters. I'm going to launch this game. So the link for the Midgard Adventures Mead Hall is in the player FAQ in Discord. And you'll see here where all sorts of folks have created characters. Someone's in there right now doing something. People come and fiddle with their characters as they please. What we do is we encourage folks to come and take one of these unclaimed characters, rename it, and use it for themselves. So if I know I would like to join a game, an upcoming game that's been announced, I can go in here and we can create a new character. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. One is they have a character mancer, which is basically a little wizard to create a level 1 character. It's only particularly helpful if you have bought the player's handbook. Otherwise, it just shows SRD content, which is the open source version of 5th edition. So it will have very little to help you actually build a character. So I'm going to go through this using the Character Mancer because I have purchased the player's handbook. I am planning to... Let's just go ahead and create a human fighter. Simplest of things. So this is literally a wizard. Let's say this is the 22-year-old person who is chaotic good. It fills in some things for me. I can also speak Elvish. It lets you pick if you want a standard human or variant human from the player's handbook. Let's do standard. And it shows me what ability score bonuses I get as a regular human. It lets me pick a class. And then it's going to ask me what skills I want, what fighting style I want. So all of this kind of follows the exact character creation procedures from the player's handbook. It's super helpful for creating a new character and quickly creating NPCs and things like that. For the Midgard Adventures player group, we allow people to either use the standard array or for choosing stats or point buy. This kind of just, it says you have 27 points. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but we're going to go ahead and say this guy is strong, dexterous, tough, dumb as a doorknob. And We'll go ahead and pick a background. These are all the ones in the player's handbook. I'll say he's a knight. He also likes playing cards and also likes to talk to goblins. It lets you either do your class starting equipment or roll for starting wealth. You could do whatever of these that you desire. This guy's going to have chainmail, a halberd, a blowgun, because why not? 2 hand axes, and an explorer's pack. Next. It shows me all of these things. I have no feats. I review. I apply changes. So the output of this, and let's rename this guy to be Bundy. The output of this is a character sheet. This is what all character sheets look like in Roll20. They look shockingly like a printed out piece of paper character sheet. So you can use them as such, although they are way more helpful than a character sheet that is made of paper. So here's Bundy. If I close this, this is my character now. He has no picture. He is a nothing. So if I want to get him a picture, I can do that. So let's go ahead and say that I probably have some character art I could throw in here. Where's a human? Okay, yes. We will use the worst character art of all time. Which is a player. Oops. That didn't work. A player who made his character look like MC Hammer. Because why not? Let's go find Bundy again. Okay, let's try this again. Now I have character art. If I want to give myself a token, I can drag something onto the board. This is our virtual tabletop, and I could say use selected token. And now here is Bundy. I could write his backstory if I want, and he is a human fighter. That's one way of creating a character sheet, a brand new character. The other way is I could do it by hand. I could just, and if I haven't purchased the player's handbook, this is probably a better way to do it. I just opt out of the character mancer and I just start filling it out. This character, let's say this character is a rogue, and their race is half elf. And then I can fill in my stats just like I would if it was a piece of paper. And I'll leave it at that. Things you will notice. Since it's a first level character, it does some math for me. It knows my proficiency bonus. It calculated my armor class. Calculated my initiative. It knows that I have proficiency in intelligence and dexterity saving throws. It knows I have 1 hit dice. It does all the math for my skills for me, which I haven't picked any yet. So let's imagine that I know I'm going to go pick some skills. Let's do athletics, acrobatics, stealth, perception. And there you go. It does all the math for me. So that's aspect 1 of doing a character sheet. If it's level 1, you take the max hit points as per the rules in the player handbook. This guy has a 1, so he would have 9 hit points to start. Let's see what else. So now I have a character who has some skills. He has stats and nothing else. If I wanted to go and add abilities for myself, features and traits, I can just add plus and say Sneak attack. That's a class thing. Rogue. Level 1. So now I have an ability. So on a super vanilla character sheet like this, what else would you want to do? You would want to have some items. You would want to have your attacks spelled out here. So this is where I would start using the compendium. The compendium is this little information thing over here. It has lots of things in it. It starts out with the regular SRD content. So any open source D&D stuff is there. For example, I want this character to have a rapier. What I can do is literally drag it onto my character sheet. And what happens in my inventory, it shows that I have a rapier, 2 pounds, and it does all the math for me. I have a +5 to attack with a rapier because it is a finesse weapon, 1d8 +3 piercing. Let's assume I want studded leather armor. I can also drag that right onto my sheet. And it will augment my armor class, which is now 15 because that is 13. Well, that doesn't actually sound right. Maybe it is right. 12. Yeah, that's about right. So now I have a character who can do things. So when we play in the Midgard Adventures group, we don't use this mead hall for games. The games here are simply for... Sorry, this screen is simply for fiddling with character sheets. Let's go ahead and put a token for this. Well, let's go back to our fighter. Nope, let's use the rogue. Just kidding. Let me find a token for our rogue. He can be this guy. Don't take anything I'm doing for granted and feel free to ask any questions. You see, I dropped a picture on the desktop. Anyone could do that and resize it to 1 square. Everything on the virtual desktop happens in increments of 5 feet, just like if you were playing on a battle map or something like that.
So, with the characters that you've created, are they only just for yourselves, or can you pass them on to other people so that they can use them?
You can do that as well. Basically, in this mode, in this room, all of these characters kind of public. You can rename them to be whatever you'd like. This is Buddy.
So someone can effectively take Buddy and use it?
If they wanted to be mean like that, but... Or if they were doing it for valid purposes, yes. You could restrict that if you so wanted. Okay. So, there's Buddy. So now, if I'm going to join a game, like I said, they don't occur here. They occur in different games. In Roll20, there's this concept of games, which I will show you. Super slow. As a dungeon master, I run all sorts of games. These are mostly here you can see some of the one-shots I've run for this group. All these warlock layers for Midgard. So if I sign up for a game, I go into Discord and say, hey, there's a game at 1 o'clock this afternoon I would like to play. The Dungeon Master will send you a link to the game. So they will send you a link to go into here and join this game. And you'll just need to, by accepting the link, you have joined the game. But your character's not here. So there's a feature in Roll20 called the Vault. Here are some characters in my vault. what I can do is I can export them from a game. So let's pick the Mead Hall. Oops, wrong thing. I am importing a character from a game. Midgard Adventure, Mead Hall. And we want Buddy.
Yeah, that bolt feature's pretty cool.
So now I should have Buddy here. And I can export him into a game. So we're going to use the Lost Temple of Anax Apagaeon. I'm going to export Buddy there. And I go over here. And if I launch the game, launch game basically opens the tabletop. I will see magically that Buddy is now here. This just happens to be an isometric map we're playing with. So this is actually probably a very bad example. But the Dungeon Master will drag your character onto the board. And several things will happen. Here's your token. Your token at this moment, this picture on the screen is not associated with your character. It's just a picture that you dropped there. So what the Dungeon Master will do and say, this token is Buddy. Here are his hit points. Here's his armor class. And now they show up as little doingy boppers above his head. So as a player, while I'm playing, if I lose hit points, if I get hit for 6, I will decrease this. And you'll see the little bar goes down. I now have 3 hit points left. Just like any battle mat, if you're playing in a store or with your friends, 5 feet increments, there is fun things like you can measure how far things are, see how spell effects work, and so on and so forth. But let's assume I'm going to walk up to this fellow over here. Actually, let's actually start a combat. So what happens... Oh, look, he rolled initiative already. When the Dungeon Master utters the fateful words of roll for initiative, the Dungeon Master will open this thing called a turn order. And you will want to roll initiative. How do you do that? You select your character, and you open your character sheet. And you can open your character sheet by simply clicking on it. And what do you know? There's your initiative here, and there's a little link underneath it. If I press that, it will roll my initiative. And I will appear in the turn order. Looks like I go second. And all the characters will be sorted here, and the Dungeon Master will tab through them to show you when your turn is. So let's assume that one thing you can do, which is very helpful, is you can double click on the header of your character and kind of minimize it to a little thing on the board. It'll help you keep a view of your character, but you can also go and this tab over here all the way on the right, my settings, you can use pop-out windows for your characters. So you could, if you have multiple monitors, you can move them. Whenever you start a game, by default, for some reason, enable 3D dice and automatically 3D dice will be turned off. So whenever you enter a game, you're going to want to turn those things on. I'm the Dungeon Master, so I have all sorts of other settings here that are irrelevant at the moment. But it's Buddy's turn. I'm going to open up my sheet. No, I'm going to move over here. I'm going to come over and attack this guy with my rapier. So what does that mean? This character sheet is a fully automated piece of magic. I can click on my rapier in my attacks section, and it will roll the dice, and the results will be in the chat. So there was my 11 on my attack. It probably wouldn't hit, but if it did, you want to roll damage. Rolling damage is a rather obtuse thing for some reason, but once you get it, you'll understand it going forward. You have to click on the name of what the attack was, and it will roll the damage. So I dealt 5 piercing to this fellow. He's down to 4. Now, almost anything else you might want to do during the game is automated on your sheet. For example, if the Dungeon Master says, make a perception check. Well, what do you know? I click on the word perception. And I have rolled a 13. If they say, make a wisdom saving throw, I can click on wisdom and make an excellent saving throw. I can basically click, if I'm unconscious, I could click on death save and it'll roll it for me. I critted a death save, so I now have 1 hit point. So on and so forth. If I have an ability that I want to show everyone, like, oh, hey, look, I can do a sneak attack. Once I have entered something in my features and traits, I can click on the little word next to it, and it will show up in the window. It's very helpful. Everyone can know you're going to sneak attack and what that means. There are other random things here. Obviously, when you create your character, you should fill out their personality traits just like you would when you create a character anywhere. But there's also these little kind of counter windows. You could use this to say the number of arrows I have, 20 out of 20. And when I use one, I can make... These are just for your own purposes to count anything related to your items or features and traits, whatever you please. So that is a super simple overview of a boring vanilla character. Now let's go look at something a little bit more complicated, and I want to create a spellcaster. Well, let's pretend this guy has got to level 3, and he now decides he's going to be an arcane trickster. When I got to level 3, I would have to do my hit points. Would be 6 per level, so I don't know, something math. You'll notice that when you up your level, that your hit dice increases, and if your proficiency bonus goes up when you reach tier 2, all of that is taken care of. But now I have a spellcasting character. So there is a spell sheet here. Now, if you have paid for the player's handbook, or if you have... almost all the spells are in the SRD. They're in the public domain. Just like for weapons, I can go to the compendium and search for a spell. So he is going to have a cantrip of... Well, let's get Mage Hand in there, because that's mandatory for an arcane trickster. There's the spell. I can drag it onto my spell sheet. It fills it in. But let's say he also wants Firebolt as a cantrip. And for a level 1 spell, maybe he picked Magic Missile. You can... So now that I have gotten to the Arcane Trickster level, it doesn't know that I have a spellcasting ability. One thing I can do... This little gear is many of the crunchier features behind your character sheet. But it can go... This is where you can do multi-classing if you desired. But I can simply click Arcane Trickster. And it knows how many spell slots I have. I pick Intelligence... And I have a DC of 12, a spell attack bonus of 4. Fantastic. Now if I go back to my sheet, what am I going to notice? But the spells that were attacks also show up under my attacks. So let's, for example, say I was hiding over here and I wanted to shoot a firebolt at that guard. I would simply, on my turn, click on the firebolt. It will miss horribly. But as always, when I make an attack, also a spell attack, I can click on the word, and it will roll the damage. Should I have hit, that would have been max damage for a firebolt. Wonderful. If I do a magic missile, It will roll the dice for me. 1d4 plus 1. Oh, because they're separate missiles. I'm shooting all of them at the same guy. He would take a stunning 12 damage and be dead. If you have spells that are not attack spells, obviously, if you click on the spell from your spell sheet, it will show it in the chat window. Now, as we know, there are plenty of spells we like to use that are not in the player's handbook. Many, many resources from Wizards of the Coast are in Roll20 so far, but one that is not, and rather annoyingly, is Xanathar's Guide. So let's say I wanted to have, let's say, a cantrip called Gust. I think that's what it's called. I can just go type it in. And I can fill out all the information. Oh, this is evocation. Is it a ritual? One action. What components I have? Is it concentration? I can fill the thing in. Oh, I don't need that. And there's two kinds of spell cards, as you just saw. We saw one that resolved as an attack, and one that showed up as just a card. Let's just say that I want it to just show up as a card. I now have that. So I can fill in any spell I want from wherever I chose it. Just click the word, and it will show up here. Everyone can read it and see it. So that's how you can enter your spells. You would keep track of your spell slots using that. Little doingy bopper there. Let's go back to our core sheet. Now that covers all of the rudimentary things you would want to do with the character sheet and how to use it. In any game, at any time, there's going to be someone who forgets how to do something in Roll20. Everyone is happy to help out, help us remember how things work or where to click. So it's not necessary to study up or get 1,000% comfortable with this. You can track your gold pieces here, so on and so forth. When the game is done, you'll get your experience, which we count in the form of sessions played. And then you will probably take the character back into your vault. I'll delete the old version, and I will import the new version from this game, so I have the latest copy of my character. This is kind of like there's a little bit of a thing to remember after a game to pull your character back into the vault. But now I have my latest copy in my vault, and he can go play in any other game going forward. So, let us talk about questions you might have. What do we got?
Still trying to digest all of it.
Yes, so the good thing is the Mead Hall here is a scratch zone. You could go create a character, click on things, fiddle around, see how it works. You'll see people have testing out their spells and their attacks and see how it works. Someone typed in some spells that aren't there these are from the Midgard Heroes Handbook.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So they went and added spells. Someone added Ice Knife, which is definitely not in the player's handbook. What other things are there? Do you have any questions about the logistics of our games or anything like that?
No, no, basically everyone has to be on night shift if they want. Well, if I'm going to get to play, I think.
Well, we have, admittedly, yes, I'm in Eastern Standard Time, but we usually have games on Saturday afternoons. We just happen to not have one this afternoon. So we usually can wrangle up folks on the other side of GMT for night games on a Saturday. That's primarily where those folks get to play. Sometimes we do Sunday afternoons. If it's a vacation, we might run games at any time of the day. But I will show you a few things about our Discord group. You will find all of the game announcements here, and I'll say what adventure we're running, who wrote it, what's the audience. So we had 2 games this week for brand new players. We're going to continue to try to keep that trend up so more people can jump in. It tells you where in Midgard you would be playing. These are the links to the Dungeon Master's info, the time when it starts, so on and so forth. You just send a message to the Dungeon Master and say, hey, I'd like to play. Like here we had a game last Saturday afternoon, and that is where we got our European contingent in. We have folks all around the world, Denmark, France, Australia. Everyone hopefully gets to play at some point. And that is that. What else could I...
Are you going to be doing any tutorials for, like, on the DM side on how to make